In the early 1990s, the computer industry was obsessed with making machines more powerful. Faster processors, larger hard drives, bigger screens, more memory. Every year, computers became more capable. And every year, they became more complicated. Most technology companies believed that was progress. Jeff Hawkins wasn't so sure. Hawkins was an engineer. But unlike many engineers of his era, he spent less time thinking about computers and more time thinking about people. How people remembered things, how they organized information, how they moved through daily life. The more he thought about it, the more he became convinced that the future of computing wasn't sitting on a desk. It was sitting in a pocket. At the time, that idea sounded unrealistic. Laptops were expensive. Mobile phones were primitive. Wireless internet barely existed. Most people still viewed computers as office equipment. Machines you visited when you needed them, not something you carried everywhere. Hawkins imagined something different. He imagined a device that would always be with you. A device small enough to carry, simple enough to use, and useful enough to become part of everyday life. The vision wasn't based on science fiction. It was based on frustration. People forgot phone numbers, missed appointments, lost notes, carried paper calendars, address books, sticky notes. The information existed. The problem was access. Hawkins believed technology should solve that problem, not by becoming more powerful, but by becoming invisible. One story became famous inside the company. Whenever Hawkins tested a new device concept, he would place a small block of wood in his pocket. The wooden block was roughly the size of the product he hoped to build. He carried it everywhere. At restaurants, at work, at home, even while traveling. The goal was simple. If carrying the block felt annoying, the device was too big. If it felt natural, the size was right. It was an unusual approach, but it revealed something important. Hawkins wasn't designing for technology. He was designing for behavior. Years later, many Silicon Valley companies would become famous for studying user experience. Jeff Hawkins was already doing it, long before the phrase became popular. In 1992, he co-founded a company called Palm. At first, few people paid attention. The technology industry was focused on personal computers. Microsoft was dominant. Intel was dominant. The future seemed tied to the desktop. Palm looked small, almost insignificant. A startup chasing an idea most people didn't understand. But Hawkins believed something the rest of the industry didn't. He believed that one day, people would expect information to travel with them, not the other way around. And if he was right, the companies building desktop computers weren't creating the future. They were defending the past. The challenge was proving it. And Palm was about to get that chance. In 1996, Palm finally introduced the device Jeff Hawkins had spent years imagining. The Palm Pilot. At first glance, it didn't look revolutionary. The screen was small. The display was black and white. The hardware was simple. Compared to desktop computers, it seemed almost underpowered. Yet the moment people used it, something clicked. The device started instantly. Information appeared immediately. Appointments were easy to find. Contacts were easy to update. Notes were easy to organize. For many users, it was the first piece of technology that felt truly personal. Not a computer shared by a family. Not a machine sitting in an office. A device that belonged to one person and traveled everywhere with them. That distinction mattered. Most technology products of the era demanded attention. The Palm Pilot saved attention. It reduced friction. It removed steps. It simplified daily routines. The experience felt almost effortless. One feature became particularly famous: graffiti, a handwriting system designed specifically for the Palm Pilot. Users learned a simplified alphabet and entered information directly on the screen with a stylus. The system wasn't perfect, but it worked. And more importantly, it felt futuristic. For the first time, many people could write directly onto a computer screen and watch their words appear instantly. Today, that sounds ordinary. In the late 1990s, it felt extraordinary. Business travelers embraced the device. Salespeople embraced it. Doctors embraced it. Lawyers embraced it. Executives embraced it. The Palm Pilot became a status symbol inside corporate America. Walk into an airport lounge, a conference room, a business convention, and chances were good you would see someone carrying one. The device solved a problem almost everyone understood. Life was becoming more complicated. More meetings, more phone numbers, more schedules, more information. People needed a way to manage it. Palm offered an answer. And unlike many technology companies, the company focused relentlessly on simplicity. Jeff Hawkins had a rule: a product should do a few things exceptionally well, not dozens of things poorly. That philosophy shaped every decision. The device was fast, reliable, easy to learn, easy to carry, easy to love. As word spread, sales accelerated, then accelerated again. Technology journalists praised the product. Business magazines praised the product. Investors began paying attention. Palm was no longer a small startup with an unusual idea. It was becoming the leader of a new category. A category many people didn't even realize existed until Palm created it. The company had done something remarkable. It convinced millions of people that they needed a device they had never imagined before. And once they experienced it, they didn't want to go back. The future Jeff Hawkins had described was beginning to arrive. The only question was how big that future might become. By the late 1990s, the Palm Pilot was everywhere. What began as a niche product for technology enthusiasts was becoming a cultural phenomenon. Sales surged, then surged again. Every quarter seemed to bring another growth record. Every month seemed to bring another wave of new customers. Palm wasn't just selling devices anymore. It was creating believers. For many professionals, carrying a Palm Pilot became part of daily life. Executives checked schedules before meetings. Salespeople updated contacts between flights. Doctors reviewed appointments between patients. Lawyers carried case notes without hauling stacks of paper. The device saved time. And in business, time was everything. Soon, a strange pattern began appearing. People weren't buying Palm Pilots because they loved technology. They were buying them because other people already had them. A manager saw one in a meeting. A colleague recommended it during a business trip. A client pulled one out during a presentation. The device spread through offices the same way software often spreads through companies. One person adopted it, then a department, then an entire organization. Palm became a symbol of efficiency, a symbol of productivity, a symbol of being ahead of the curve. Technology magazines featured it. Business magazines featured it. Airports seemed full of them. For a brief moment, owning a Palm Pilot felt like owning a piece of the future. Investors noticed. Wall Street noticed. Silicon Valley noticed. And as attention grew, competitors began appearing. Many companies wanted a share of the new market. Microsoft launched Windows CE devices. Other manufacturers introduced personal digital assistants of their own. Some had larger screens. Some had more features. Some looked more advanced. Yet Palm continued winning. Because Palm understood something many competitors didn't. More features didn't automatically create a better experience. Complexity was easy. Simplicity was difficult. Jeff Hawkins and the Palm team remained obsessed with removing friction. Every unnecessary step mattered. Every unnecessary button mattered. Every unnecessary feature mattered. The result was a device people actually wanted to use. And that distinction proved powerful. The market rewarded Palm. The company grew rapidly. Its influence expanded rapidly. Its valuation expanded even faster. Then came one of the most extraordinary moments of the dot-com era. Palm became one of the most valuable technology companies in America. For a period of time, investors valued Palm at levels that shocked even industry veterans. The enthusiasm felt limitless. The future of mobile computing seemed obvious. Palm had created the category. Palm dominated the category. And many assumed Palm would own the category forever. But technology history has a habit of punishing certainty. The moment a company appears untouchable, the clock often starts ticking. Inside Palm, new challenges were emerging. The company was growing larger. The organization was becoming more complicated. And some of the people who built Palm's success were beginning to wonder whether the company was changing. For Jeff Hawkins, that question would soon become impossible to ignore. By the year 2000, Palm was no longer simply a successful technology company. It had become the company people associated with mobile computing itself. When people thought about handheld devices, they thought about Palm. When businesses discussed digital organization, they discussed Palm. When investors talked about the future of computing, Palm was often at the center of the conversation. The company's rise had been extraordinary. Just a few years earlier, most consumers had never heard the term PDA. Now millions of people carried one. And Palm owned the vast majority of the market. Competitors continued trying to catch up. Microsoft invested heavily in mobile software. Hardware manufacturers launched new devices. Technology companies introduced increasingly complex products. Many of them offered more features than Palm. More memory. More processing power. More technical capabilities. Yet Palm remained the standard. The reason was surprisingly simple. Most competitors were building technology products. Palm was building habits. People depended on their Palm devices. Schedules lived there. Phone numbers lived there. Notes lived there. Daily routines lived there. The device became part of professional life. And once a product becomes a habit, replacing it becomes much harder. Wall Street loved the story. Investors believed Palm represented the next stage of personal computing. The internet boom was reaching its peak. Technology stocks were soaring. And Palm became one of the market's favorite companies. Then came the IPO. The reaction was explosive. Shares surged dramatically. Financial headlines appeared everywhere. Analysts rushed to explain Palm's future. Commentators compared the company to Microsoft. Some predicted Palm would become one of the most important technology companies in the world. The optimism felt endless. For a brief period, Palm's market value reached levels that stunned even experienced investors. In some calculations, Palm was worth more than companies that generated far greater revenue. The numbers reflected something larger than profits. They reflected belief. Belief that mobile computing would reshape the world. And belief that Palm would lead that transformation. Looking back today, it's easy to see the excitement as part of the dot-com bubble. But at the time, the enthusiasm felt rational. Palm had created a new category. Palm dominated that category. And Palm appeared years ahead of many competitors. The company seemed perfectly positioned for the future. Yet inside Palm, not everyone felt comfortable. Growth was changing the organization. Decision-making was becoming slower. Management structures were becoming larger. Meetings were becoming longer. The company that once moved like a startup was beginning to behave like a corporation. For many executives, that was a sign of maturity. For Jeff Hawkins, it was something else. He worried that Palm might become too focused on protecting its success, too focused on defending what already existed, and not focused enough on what came next. The concern grew stronger with each passing year, because Hawkins believed the future of mobile computing had not arrived yet. Palm Pilot was only the beginning. The truly important device still had not been built, and convincing Palm to pursue that future was becoming increasingly difficult. From the outside, Palm looked unstoppable. The company dominated mobile computing. Its products were everywhere. Its market position appeared secure, and investors remained convinced that the best years were still ahead. It should have been a moment of celebration. Instead, it became a moment of division. The problem wasn't competition. Not yet. The problem was vision. Jeff Hawkins had spent years imagining the future of mobile computing. And the more successful Palm became, the more he worried the company was becoming trapped by its own success. Palm Pilot had transformed the industry, but Hawkins never believed it was the final destination. He viewed it as a first step, a bridge towards something much larger, something much more ambitious. The challenge was that successful companies often become cautious. Success creates expectations. Expectations create pressure. And pressure encourages stability. Many executives wanted Palm to protect its market leadership, improve existing products, expand existing businesses, defend what already worked. The strategy made sense. After all, Palm was winning. Why take unnecessary risks? Why disrupt a successful formula? Why gamble on uncertain ideas? Hawkins saw the situation differently. He believed the greatest threat wasn't competition. The greatest threat was standing still. Technology was evolving rapidly. Wireless communication was improving. Mobile internet was beginning to emerge. Phones were becoming more sophisticated. The future would not belong to electronic organizers forever. Something bigger was coming. The question was whether Palm would build it, or someone else would. As disagreements increased, the relationship between Palm's founders and the company's leadership became increasingly strained. The arguments were not about whether mobile computing mattered. Everyone agreed on that. The arguments were about what came next. and how aggressively Palm should pursue it. Eventually, Jeff Hawkins made a decision. So did two other key Palm leaders, Donna Dubinsky, Ed Colligan. Together, they left the company they had helped build. The news shocked the industry. Palm was at the height of its influence. Most people expected founders to leave struggling companies, not dominant ones. Yet the departure revealed something important. The people who created Palm believed the future of mobile computing was still unwritten, and they wanted the freedom to chase it. Outside observers wondered what would happen next. Some assumed the founders would retire. Others expected consulting projects. A few predicted another startup. The truth was far more ambitious. Jeff Hawkins wasn't leaving mobile computing behind. He was preparing to reinvent it again. And this time, he intended to go beyond the Palm Pilot, beyond the PDA, beyond the category Palm had already created. Because Hawkins believed the next great device wouldn't simply organize your life. It would connect your life. And to build that future, he would need a new company. A company called Handspring. In 1998, Jeff Hawkins, Donna Dubinsky, and Ed Colligan started over. The decision surprised almost everyone. Most entrepreneurs dream of building a successful company. Very few walk away from one. Palm had become the dominant name in mobile computing. Its products were everywhere. Its future appeared bright. Yet the founders believed something important. The biggest opportunity was still ahead. They named the new company Handspring. The goal wasn't to compete with Palm immediately. The goal was to continue exploring the future of mobile technology, without the limitations of a large corporation, without layers of management, without the pressure to protect an existing business. The startup felt familiar. Small teams, fast decisions, long hours. The same energy that had once defined Palm. But this time the vision was broader. Jeff Hawkins had spent years studying how people interacted with technology. The lesson he kept returning to was simple. People wanted fewer devices, not more. At the time, professionals often carried multiple tools. A mobile phone, a palm organizer, a pager, sometimes a laptop. Each solved a different problem. Each required its own battery, its own charger, its own pocket. Hawkins believed that arrangement wouldn't last. Eventually, those functions would merge. One device would handle communication, information, organization, and internet access. Today, that prediction seems obvious. At the end of the 1990s, it was far from obvious. Most technology companies still treated phones and computers as separate products. The industries barely overlapped. Wireless networks were limited. Mobile internet was slow. Hardware remained constrained. The technology required to combine everything into one device wasn't fully ready. Yet Hawkins kept pushing in that direction. Handspring's first products found success. The company attracted attention. Investors returned. Customers returned. The founders proved they could build great products outside Palm. But those products were never the final objective. They were stepping stones, experiments, preparation for something larger. Inside Palm, executives watched carefully. Outside Palm, competitors watched carefully. Everyone understood one thing. When Jeff Hawkins became obsessed with an idea, it was usually worth paying attention. because he had already predicted one technological shift. And now he was trying to predict another. The question was whether the market was ready. The answer arrived in 2002, in the form of a device that would blur the line between phone and computer. A device called the Trio. For many people, it looked strange. For Jeff Hawkins, it looked like the future. And soon, the entire mobile industry would be forced to take notice.